Continuing now on Newsmax Prime and repeating our story of prime interest, a federal appeals court upholds an injunction halting President Obama's executive amnesty. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ruled in favor of the state of Texas, which had sued to stop that amnesty. It marks the second judicial setback for the administration on this issue. For more now, let's bring in our panel. From Newsmax Washington, Stephen Cobb, former general counsel to the Democratic Party of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And from Las Vegas, Megan Barth, founder of ReaganBaby.com and a political commentator. And Megan, ladies first, your take on the Fifth Circuit decision.
Well, I'm glad they upheld the previous decision because Obama's amnesty order does break the law. We have a law on the books that was passed by a bipartisan Congress in 1994 under Bill Clinton. And in order to change that law or create a new law, it has to go through Congress. The president, although he believes he can unilaterally act, he cannot. We do have a separation of powers for a reason, and he needs to find a way to work with Congress in order to fix a system which he claims is broken. But I challenge that if he upheld the 1994 law and would implement it and enforce it through his DOJ and Department of Homeland Security, perhaps by enforcing the law, we can then follow the law.
Well, the enforcement of existing laws, something I advocated in Congress. Stephen Cobb, what is your take on today's decision?
Well, to be clear, this didn't have anything to do with the abrogation of any laws in 1994. The action at the district court level dealt with whether or not the administrative actions were governed under the Administrative Process Act and whether or not those procedures had been properly followed. So there isn't an issue here of following any act passed under President Clinton or not. This is the Administrative Process Act, and whether or not the issue of the executive orders going through DHS are justiciable. So well, I mean, we just need to make sure that we understand that we're talking about the same issues here. You see people discuss this in really broad strokes, and that brings down the debate. I think one of the things that Megan hits on, which is very important, is the fact that Congress needs to engage and act on comprehensive immigration reform. I think we can agree on that. There was a bipartisan majority in the Senate that passed comprehensive immigration reform. It went nowhere in the House. And that, in part, is where we look at that spawned these executive orders because of Congress's inability to get together and to act.
But an executive order for a president to issue or to have the rationale that because Congress has not acted, he's going to act. You may say the case was decided on different merits, but certainly that is vital to the case. Now listen, time is short. I need to switch to another topic that likewise deals with the courts, in this case the High Court, the Supreme Court. The four words that could unravel Obamacare, quote, established by the state. The current law makes health insurance tax credit subsidies illegal unless they go through an exchange set up by the respective states. But it leaves out 34 states where the federal government runs that exchange instead. Megan Barth, do you think that this is going to be repudiated by the Supreme Court?
Well, yeah, I believe it will be repudiated by the Supreme Court because the law was poorly and hastily written, and they had to pass it in order to find out what was in it. Well, we're now finding out what is in it, and over 20 states have sued the federal government that do not want to establish subsidies or exchanges for subsidies within their states. So it's quite a mess. It needs to go back to the drawing board, repealed, reformed, revised, and back through Congress. I do hope that the Supreme Court does repudiate it because Obamacare is a disaster. It's a disaster for us economically. And we do not need the federal government mandating insurance or forcing people to buy a product.
Stephen Cobb, your take on what may transpire with Obamacare in front of the Supreme Court.
I think the enforceability and legality of Obamacare will be upheld, likely 5-4, maybe even 6-3. When it gets into an issue of legislative intent, even former Republican Senator Olympia Snowe is on record saying that there was no rationale or intent on behalf of Congress in order to only limit subsidies to those states that had constructed their own exchanges. I think that argument is going to prevail at the end of the day. And once again, Obamacare is going to be the law of the land. And hopefully we can go on and see that this is a law that is working, that the level of uninsured is dropping, and that this is going to be a large success for the Obama administration.
Megan and Stephen, before we leave, another topic I want to bring up. Ferguson, Missouri. Seems the very protesters who looted and ruined that city center are asking for money. Some of them apparently promised payments of up to $5,000 to join the protests. They didn't get paid. They've taken to Twitter to protest what goes on. Megan, is this a case of the left renting a mob? 20 seconds.
Absolutely. You see George Soros's tentacles within this and through his group busing in people from outside of the state of Missouri in order to burn Ferguson down, riot, and loot. So definitely it's a rent-a-mob, and it's not something that's uncommon when George Soros or anyone that's DNC operative or supporter of the DNC is involved in.
15 seconds to you, Stephen Cobb, for the last word.
Well, I mean, I think it's a horribly broad characterization, and certainly you don't want paid protesters in this regard, and hopefully we find out that, that if this actually happened, that it's a small group and isn't reflective of those who are expressing those First Amendment rights.
Well, that rent-a-mob may need a good lawyer, Stephen, so if they come to D.C., they may look you up. Stephen Cobb, Megan Barth, our thanks to you, and Newsmax Prime continues right after this.